Hey, welcome everyone. Welcome to the podcast of Verify, the Asia best #1 podcast that you have ever heard and seen. So today is our pleasure to invite one of the founder of Sega, Victor. So Victor, can you do like a short introduction about yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everyone. I am Victor. I'm one of the technical co-founders of Sega. We are really glad to have GBV as one of our investors and also to have such a close working relationship with their team. I'm actually currently at the office with the guys, and everyone's really great to hang out with. So it's a pleasure to be here. Before building Sega, I was working on my own startup. It's a machine learning company with my twin brother. We went through Y Combinator in 2020, just before markets crashed because of COVID. And then before that, I was at Tesla managing their global referral program. And at Tesla, I've met Elon quite a few times, which has been pretty interesting.
Super cool, super cool. It's like in crypto world, like we have seen like tons of projects, but like not much project have like the previous startup experience. I believe that like the Y Combinator experience could like be like a good experience and give more like idea on you and your team to building the Sega, right? So it's super cool that you work with like Elon before. I definitely believe that you guys have met several times before. I'm just curious, like, what do you think about him?
I think Elon is a great CEO for the company. Although I think he recently stepped down as a CEO, but in terms of setting the overall priorities for what Tesla has to execute to stay competitive and to win in the industry, I think he made all the correct major decisions possible. I was there in 2017, 2019. I watched him ruthlessly prioritize cost cutting. Actually, there's a funny meeting one Sunday where he pulled my team into the office, and he basically sent us all an email just like, I need everyone on the team, interns included, to come to the office for a meeting. And in the meeting, basically told us like, all right, guys, here's our current costs. Here's the current price we're trying to sell the Model 3 for. We have to find 1,000 ways to save $1. And this is super, super, super important for the company to stay alive. And so these kinds of moments really make you appreciate how focused he was on the most important things for the business at any given time. So I think in terms of leadership, definitely a leader like none other.
Super cool. I definitely agree that he's like a good businessman and like super, super smart guy. Like back in the old day, I used to be like a kind of like Elon big followers. Yeah, like fans boy. Like I always follow every tweet that he mentioned. But like I agree that like most of his decision is super correct. But the one thing that he screwed up is like he sell his Bitcoin.
That's true.
Crush the market. That's like something so bad that it's just like I used to love that guy, like super smart, super smart. But the thing is like, everything changed afterward. It's like, why this guy keeps screwing up the market? It's just like back for crypto. So I feel like not a fans boy anymore. So let's jump back to more about Sega. So could you also introduce about the platform?
Yeah, totally. So Sega is a decentralized exotic derivatives protocol. We build exotic option structured products for retail investors that generate superior yield and also offer built-in downside protection for market downturns. We're developing new capabilities in tech, in token contracts, in data modeling that will enable us to continue to evolve and push DeFi forward. Getting started using Sega is very easy. You just go to app.sega.fi, you connect your Phantom or Solana-based wallet, and you click a button to deposit your USDC, and we take care of all the magic and hard work required to execute exotic options trades, and you click the yield at the end. Since launching in June of this year, we've already surpassed $32 million in TVL, which is super exciting. And we are trying to make a big push for going multi-chain sometime next quarter.
Cool. Like personally, I also use Sega before. So the UI and UX is like super expensive, like not expensive, sorry, like super impressive. Yeah. So what happened is that like when I go into the interface, it's like quite friendly. And like the NFT stuff is like super cute. I remember you guys launched like Sega NFT is super cute. Like for most of the DeFi product, like they tend to build like a super sophisticated interface and it just like give you the feel like, oh, it's like super serious. But like in Sega, it's like totally different. It's like just give me the feels that like, oh, it's user friendly. Like it's simple to use. Like one click, I could just do what I want. So like, why do you guys want to do like this style of design?
So actually, Sega's branding was very much a conscious decision. We, from just if you look at our team, all of us are very product centric. We have backgrounds at Google and Apple and Tesla, companies that are known for creating, I think, just really beautiful experiences, beautiful interfaces for people. And we also wanted to make sure that, you know, when people think about financial products today, you might think about like Morgan Stanley or some of these business banking pages that are very boring, static, and informative. And so we wanted to find a good middle ground that offered a really kind of more fun, approachable way to use financial products, but still make it serious enough that people understand we are serious about security. We are serious about finances. You know, this is not like a like a fun cutesy project. This is just like, you know, we are here to help move DeFi forward, but we want you, the retail investor, to be able to understand and use it very, very easily. And so that was our goal with the branding.
That's a super like good strategy on building the branding. I guess that's one of the reasons why the TVL is like super good, right? So basically like I go for like use some like DeFi analytics to check out TVL. Like Sega definitely is like the top 5 or something. Like I guess like the TVL just keep growing. I'm just curious, like there's like multiple chain, like except of Solana, like you could be on Ethereum, Avalanche, or even like Matic. I'm just curious, like why, like what makes you guys to choose Solana instead of other chains? So that like, that must be some like significant reason that makes you to build on Solana first.
Yeah. So we actually made this decision back in December, January of last year. And at the time, Solana was actually the clear choice to build on. It was very fast. So I'm sure, as people know, on Solana, you have, you know, upwards of 4,000 transactions per second. Although obviously with some occasional network congestion and delay, it could be lower. The latency is very low, so transactions get processed very quickly. And then the average cost per transaction is only fractions of a cent. So that actually creates a better user experience for retail investors. And so when we put all those different things together, it just seemed like the great place to kickstart Sega. And one of the other things that I'm not sure if the viewers know is that unlike EVM chains, Solana programs are actually upgradable. And so this is pretty significant because what it means is that you can continue to improve the product after you've launched it. Whereas on the EVM side, it's once you've launched the contract, it kind of stays as is until the V2 or V3 comes along. And so the fact that it's upgradable means that you can build in more of an iterative process. You can have your code for the V1 audited and then continue to work on the V2, have it audited, and redeploy to the same program address. And so these are some of the reasons why we thought, from a technical standpoint, Solana was just the right chain to build for when we started.
Actually, for myself, like Solana is like the second chain the most active chain that I have used, like except of Ethereum and Solana, and definitely Solana is like good one. And I like sometimes I think like when we talk about like layer 1, it's all about like community, right? Like except of Ethereum, except of Cardano, like Solana is like the best community one, right? But like if you build on Cardano, it's just like you know, like the community is good, the chat, I don't know, but like for Solana, it's definitely a layer 1 that could like have a good community, and also like in tech support is like super good, right? So I'm just curious, like for Ethereum is like using the Solidity language, right? but like for Solana is using Rust. But as far as I know that like before you guys building Sega, I'm not sure you guys have like any experience on building Solidity or Rust. Like, is there any challenge when you learning or using Rust as a language?
Yeah, totally. Rust is not the easiest language to pick up, but we think that most programmers that study it can pick it up. For me personally, I actually coded C and C++ back when I was at school, and so a lot of the concepts are very much fundamental between Rust and C++, so they are transferable, which made learning it much easier. I think if you are a developer that is maybe coming from a front end or JavaScript background, picking up something like Rust can be more difficult. But actually, the Rust Foundation have a pretty good website where you can go to, I think, rust-lang.org, and it offers a lot of really great material on how to learn the language and use it. And actually, on our team, we have two technical co-founders. My other co-founder, Felicia, is an amazing backend developer, and she's very fluent in Go, which is also a very common backend language. So anybody who is comfortable with Go, C, C++, like you'll pick up Rust, no problem. The other, I think, interesting thing about building on Solana is that there's this framework that came out a little while ago called Anchor. And the Anchor framework allows people to build and deploy Solana programs more easily. You can think of it like the Ruby on Rails equivalent for Ruby. That's what Anchor does for Solana programs. And so we also use the Anchor framework, which helps with a lot of the boilerplate in serialization, deserialization, and so on and so forth, that made it possible for us to get to market much faster.
So I guess like as long as like you have like a previous experience on developing something on C++, something like that. So basically it's not, I won't say it's easy. It's just like not difficult, or maybe you just take a certain time, then you could like know how to build use the Rust language to build on Solana. So I'm just curious on another question, which is like why do you guys want to do like option flow platform? Like as far as we know, like there's like bunch of DeFi idea, bunch of DeFi. Like you could like do an AMM, you could like do something like something like GMX, do a perp chase, something like that. And like in terms of like even inside the option market, so there's like different kind of like some order book option style. Like, so why do you guys want to pick up like option flow as a build option flow platform?
So when we looked at the traditional retail market strategies across the world, we actually saw that fixed coupon notes and other put selling strategies were very dominant across a majority of wealth management strategies and were commonly sold by wealth managers. Arissa, who's our CEO and one of our other co-founders, she also traded exotic derivatives back in the Asian markets. And so she had firsthand exposure as to how common these products are, and also exactly what kind of customers demanded it. And so it was kind of this perfect timing where we realized that the market in crypto was moving forward fast enough that this opportunity existed to bring this very powerful strategy that usually existed in TradFi for large institutional players into crypto and make it available for the masses. And that is essentially why we built Sega in the first place.
I see. I guess that's the same reason that why you guys want to do the fixed coupon notes first, right? So but except of the fixed coupon notes, like what else are you guys planning to do it?
There's actually quite a few other things that we're thinking about, and we're going to release more information about that publicly once it's ready to be shared. But in terms of like fixed coupon notes, I mean, for us, that made a lot of sense to be the first thing that we launched to market because, as you know, you get a very appealing yield, but there's also downside protection for users. And when we surveyed a lot of our customers on Discord and on Twitter, kind of in the last few months, the thing that we commonly heard from people was that we want products that give us yield, but give it to us safely. And I think this matters a lot more, especially right now that we're in a bear market. And so what we're offering with, a FCN fixed coupon note with 90% downside protection is a very appealing thing for customers today. And obviously we'll launch additional structured products as we continue to build and grow.
Okay, cool. So actually, I also like the downside protection idea of the fixed coupon notes. Basically, it just make me feel like when I do like an option flow, it just make me feel like, oh, that's less risky. And then like maybe like I have like a higher probability to get some profit instead of just losing all my money. Like, and then like it's like optional. Like I saw like in the platform, you just like have some downside protection with like a higher downside protection. Some is like a lower downside protection. So basically you give the user an option to choose like whether I want to be like a degen, whether I want to be just like earn a bit money with a super good protection, something like that, right?
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Like there's like bunch of like option for platform or like some platform doing option. For example, like Faitiness, like Wigborn. So I'm just curious, like, is there any significant difference to differentiate Sega from them?
Yeah, I mean, we are the only protocol offering exotic options, at scale today on Solana, or just I think just across the crypto ecosystem. And as you guys know, exotic options are a more flexible way to kind of express your view on the market and the market movements. A lot of the existing DOV products, Theta Nuts and Ribbon, like you mentioned, are built on top of existing tokenized derivatives, but we actually build the entire stack end to end in-house. So that starts from the Monte Carlo pricing engine to kind of price the options all the way through observations of different knock and knockout barriers to settlement. So we are handling exactly the whole stack ourselves. And I think that gives us a lot of advantages in terms of making the processes more smooth with our operations and also providing a better experience for our users. And I think honestly, I mean, I think at the end of the day, if you kind of think about what everybody is doing for the ecosystem, we are actually all growing the ecosystem by making more of these different DeFi products available to customers. And I think as a whole, we're expanding the pie, which is a really great thing for crypto and for DeFi.
Like personally, I also try, like I didn't try the Wigborn before, but I tried like Faitiness and Sega before, like based on the user experience. Like personally, I lose some money on the Faitiness, but like I earn some money on Sega. So
there
like based on a user perspective, like I haven't used Faitiness like after, but like I'm still using Sega. I'm just curious, like, is there any interesting story, like while you're building the journey of Sega, like, is there any like interesting story from the Solana house, something like that?
Yeah, there's so many interesting stories. Probably the one that I wanted to share is when we started building on Solana, knowing how hard learning Solana programming is, my co-founder and I, Felicia, we moved to San Francisco and we actually worked from the Solana San Francisco office for 5 months. And this is actually something cool that the Solana Foundation makes available to protocols building on Solana, but you can essentially go to the office and you can get a hot desk and they have these really cool monitors. You can basically just sit there and work and be plugged into the ecosystem. But I mean, the craziest story, honestly, is like there is a team, which I will not mention by name, and all the 4 co-founders actually lived at the office. So in the phone booth and in the conference room was actually like a futon. And these guys would wake up at, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, start coding, and they would code until 2 a.m., 3 a.m. They would take showers in the building, and then they would go to sleep at the office. And they would do this every single day of the week. And it's been a while since, I might look young, but I'm not that young anymore. But I was like, man, these guys have like really young energy. Like this is what I expected from, crypto developers, right? And that was just something that I never expected I would see.
So much more appreciate about the hustle spirit. That's super crazy, right? So like you have the web2 startup experience and also the web3 experience. I'm just curious, like I believe that you have like approached to like bunch of like web2, web3 people before or after. So like, is there any difference between like the web2 founders and web3 founders? Like, except of the hustle spirit, it's like super impressive, of course.
That's an interesting question. You know, probably the way I think about it is the best founders are founders that really care about what problem they're solving, and they really care about who they're solving the problem for. And I think whether you are building in Web 2 or you're building in Web 3, you have to really understand who your customers are and what problem you're solving for them and what value you're creating for them. And so when I think about some of my friends in Web 2 who are amazing founders, or some of my friends in Web 3 who are amazing founders, they're usually the founders that just care so much about somebody's pain. Like, it's almost kind of crazy in some ways, but as a founder, your job is to both take the pain away and replace the pain with this magical experience. We're in the business of creating magical value in some ways. And so whether it's a Web 2 or Web 3 founder, the best founders all have this kind of a focus. In terms of the actual differences, I think from a technical perspective, a lot of what you learn and do in crypto technologies is very much specialized. You know, so much of things that we learn about how the blockchain works, how Solana's proof of history works, how, you know, these future interoperability protocols like Layer 0 work. Like, this kind of stuff doesn't really exist in Web 2, right? So if I'm coming in with 15 years of HTML, CSS experience, you're going to have to download the white paper and read Bitcoin's white paper, Ethereum's white paper, all these white papers, just like everybody else, because, you know, that old skill that you have isn't directly applicable. And this is actually one of the reasons why I think we're seeing so many young Web3 founders. I've met so many amazing people, talented people in Web3 who are 21 years old, dropped out of university, 23 years old. And it's because they just literally, you know, they just spend all their time reading and coding and trying to build, and they're moving things forward. And that same amount of time that they put in has to be put in by people like me, who is coming from Web 2. Except, you know, if you're young, you probably don't have loans, you don't have a family. You can just stay at the office for, you know, the whole time and just code. So it really gives advantages to people who are starting out in Web3 from scratch, who can dedicate their time.
Cool. The first step is like always difficult, right? Like, once you want to take the risks and move the first step, and afterward, I believe that like the future is gonna be a lot easier. Like, so I'm just curious, like, except of the thing you mentioned, like maybe for like a Web2 developer, first step would be like they have to go through the white paper to understand how the layer 1 works, how to build on it. Like, if I am like a Web2 founder, so what else is need to do well in Web3? Like, how to build like a successful platform like Sega, and like what I should do?
That is a very complex question to answer. I think there's no magical bullet, because if you are a founder trying to build a successful company in Web3, you need an amazing team. You need a good idea. There's so many different parts of it, but maybe the thing that I can help share is what I did to get started. And I wanted to start by actually just sharing a story. So the first crypto conference that I went to was DeFi Con in New York, and that's actually where I met my co-founder, Arissa. And at the time that I went to DeFi Con, you know, I had been rugged a few times by Olympus projects, and I had used a bunch of different other DeFi things, but I wasn't super plugged into the ecosystem. And when I was in the crowd just talking to random people, I actually talked to one of the co-founders of Banky. I don't know if you like Banky is one of like it's a really big DeFi protocol on Avalanche, and we were having this conversation, and I was asking this guy like, "How did you get started?" And he literally told me, he was like, "Hey man, I was in your exact same shoes like 1.5 years ago, and this guy is like a religion major. Like he went to university studying religion." Right, so he's not even
religion major.
He's like not even technical, you know. And he said, for him, what he did was basically he downloaded the Bitcoin white paper, he read through the whole paper, highlighted the things he didn't know, read it again, Googled the descriptions, and just kept going back until the things that he highlighted were understood. And then he went to like the Ethereum white paper, and then the Avalanche white paper, and so on and so forth. And it was just so motivating to see that. Basically, I was like, shit, man, if someone who's studying religion for a living could become an expert. Like I went to University of Toronto studying electrical and computer engineering. Like I literally coded and studied like technical things, right? Like surely I can also learn this thing too. And so I think that kind of gave me the confidence to say, hey, like I can figure this out, and we can, dive right in and just really apply time and apply yourself to learning these different concepts. And so what you really learn quickly is that at some point when you get familiar with these concepts, a lot of things you learn in Web2, you can kind of pattern match what works. But honestly, I think just the most important thing for a lot of the new developers is just like, don't be scared of starting out. Everybody in Web3 started somewhere, and you just need to kind of dive in and find people that can motivate you and keep you excited about building and about learning.
That's cool. Like, I guess it's like super amazing in crypto that like, as long as you want to try, as long as you try. So basically you have the opportunity to shine, right? But like, I guess like throughout the journey of building Sega, like there's not like all fantasy, right? There must have sometimes some mistake or failure that you have ever made, right? So I'm just curious, like, could you share more about this area? Like, have you ever made some mistake throughout the journey of building Sega?
Yeah, I mean, I think, obviously the road to success is not like a straight line. It's very zigzaggy, and we at Sega really value experimentation, right? So we try a lot of different things. I mean, as you mentioned before, actually, our NFT launch was actually an experiment. So when we were thinking about how do we go to market with Sega, and how do we find ways to attract new customer groups of retail investors, we actually decided as a team that we were going to launch a utility-based NFT, which is the Supersonics. And this was actually a very like high risk decision for us as a company, because we are a DeFi protocol, and for the biggest day of our life launching a mainnet, we're also going to launch an NFT project, right? And the reason we're doing it is because we really believed that this experiment would pay off, right? But even when we were starting out, like we didn't know 100% that you're going to sell out. We didn't know that the community that we can bring it, like that there is some overlap between NFTs and DeFi. And so we actually had just as a company look at everything we do as a set of different calculated experiments, and we want to iterate very quickly through the different decisions that we make. And once we find things that work, we continue to go down that path and solidify these different things. Probably the funniest thing that we did during our early days was when you are developing on DevNet in Solana, it turns out that versioning actually matters. And so probably some of the hardest things that we did in the early days was literally just to figure out how to deploy to DevNet, with the incorrect configuration, you can deploy it to a different contract on DevNet, or just completely, you know, get your configuration built all screwed up. But these are all different things that I think as we were building through DevNet, working with our other friends and protocol founders, we smoothed out a lot of these different engineering-based deployment questions that we had throughout the journey.
Cool. Turn out it's like a very successful journey, right? So I'm just curious more about like, what do you think about the future development of DeFi, like especially about the option market?
Yeah, the future is bright. Everybody on the team, we are DeFi users ourselves. We really believe in DeFi. I think the three things that we can see DeFi moving towards are, number one, flexibility and availability of new asset classes. And so when you think about what's happening in DeFi today, so many protocols, Sega included, we're basically building up our protocol off of building blocks of other people. And so there's this really interesting behavior where protocols can compose on other protocols. And essentially you're basically, it's like a chain reaction of different possibilities. We're able to actually create new asset classes or tranche things or bring things to life that maybe never existed before. And this is different than past cycles where you have a lot of forks, like Olympus fork and Abracadabra and Rome and Snowdog, right? Like just the copy pasting. We're actually now seeing building blocks being built up. So I think that is super, super exciting. The second thing I wanted to mention is that we are noticing this pattern of stronger counterparty risk management. And so when you think about DeFi protocols, and I think nowadays it's amazing that people are asking, like, where is the yield coming from? Or like, am I the yield? Like, am I getting rugged? I mean, am I the one being yield farmed? A lot of protocols are now starting to think about risk management more strongly. And we are actually one of the first protocols. Actually, I think we are the first protocol to set up credit rating and trade limits with counterparties based on one of our partners, Credora. They just rebranded from Xmargin. But this essentially helps us manage counterparty risk. It makes us feel much more confident when we go to our users and say, hey, what we are offering to you is a safe product. I think that the third future development for DeFi is just scaling cross-chain much, much faster. And I think we have all these different new layer ones that are coming out that are fast and cheap and efficient. But you have all this money, just locked up in different chains. Like if you think about USDC on Solana, USDC on Ethereum, USDC on Avalanche, USDC on Polygon, so on and so forth. These kinds of users on other chains aren't able to actually access what you've built. And so the fact that Wormhole on Solana exists or Layer 0 exists allows protocols like us to scale cross-chain much, much more quickly. So those are the things that we are super excited about, where DeFi is headed.
Like when talk about like counterparty risk, it just makes me think of like VL. Like, so basically like they screw up like some VC, some fund, and also some projects. So basically what they do is like they do some projects just like give the treasury balance to the VLO and then believe that they're the king, they're the god to make like bunch of money. So like getting like a certain percentage of yield to generate. Like that's gonna be like a big problem for projects or even for VC or for like people in crypto to think about it. Like counterparty risk is like super important and some priority that we have to go check up. Like except of like counterparty risk, I personally think of like when we're doing like a project, like the user is like super important, right? So basically we need it's not only about web3 user. Like in the future, we're gonna need like the web2 user to migrate to the web3 service and using our web3 platform. So do you guys have any planning on the growth hacking? Like how will you guys attract those web2 user or even more web3 user to use the platform?
So when we think about users, we have both institutional and retail users, and these two user groups have very different growth strategies. I'll mostly focus on what we're doing on the retail side. And the first things first, like you have to create a good product, right? So when I was talking about how as a startup, we have to figure out what is the problem that we're solving for and who are we solving this problem for. When we look at DeFi users today, what they are seeking is they're seeking yield, right? They're seeking some return on their money, but what they also want is safety and security. And so creating a good product here at Sega is the first and most important thing that we can do, right? So this means that when we are structuring a basket, we're considering structuring it in a way that delivers appropriate yield with safety, but also giving people options to have higher yield with slightly less downside protection. It's why it really informs how we think about our work with Credora, which is to manage counterparty risk, because that also matters a lot for our users. It also informs all of our kind of operations and day-to-day trade activities. So at the end of the day, creating a good product is probably the most important thing that we can do to getting the word out there. Because if I've learned anything at Tesla, like your product doesn't always sell itself, but you can't market a bad product. So you have to still create a good product first and foremost. When we look at other channels that we're doing in terms of marketing, Twitter co-marketing has been very successful for us in terms of scaling. It's like an effective way of scaling promotions. So if you go to Sega_Fi, which is our Twitter handle, follow us by the way, you'll see that we've done a lot of different Twitter spaces with Pith, with other Solana protocols, and with our auditors. Like we try to really find ways to get the word across and cross-pollinate these different audience groups in very organic ways. And then I think lastly, our NFT launch ultimately was very successful. Like it was a very successful experiment. It got the word out. Some of our users are massive, like I guess DJs, and have bought up a bunch of these NFTs too. But it was just a really exciting way to bring this NFT crowd to DeFi and to Sega. But I think in terms of overall growth hacking, there is only so much hacking you can do in this current environment, because when the markets are depressed and when anchor tanks and you have all these different capitulations of funds and firms, it makes sense that a lot of DeFi users are worried, and so we are aware of this too. And so for us, it changes how we think about which channels and what messaging to use to acquire our customers.
Cool. So I guess there's some hints for like people that want to, like, even audience that want to build like a web3 project, right? So first you have to like build a good product, and when you do marketing, you try to do some co-marketing stuff. I have one more question. It's just about like you mentioned about there's like a bunch of new chain, right? I guess like Aptos. So do you guys have any planning on migrate to those chain?
So all I can say at the moment is that we are following Aptos and Sui pretty closely. We're in all the different Telegram groups and taking a look at exactly what's going on. Honestly, I think that's pretty exciting because Move is obviously very, very similar to Rust, and it is a better language than Solidity. And so we're very, very excited about Aptos and Sui. From a roadmap perspective, for us, the focus in the next quarter and a half is very much to go to other chains that have strong DeFi users already today. And as you know, if you think about how to grow users and increase TVL, let's go to where our users are. And today our users are also on Ethereum, they're on Polygon, they're on Avalanche. And so that's our immediate focus. And, but obviously as a team of engineers, like we love new tech and we love these cool new innovations. So we're following Aptos and Sui pretty closely.
Cool, thanks. I guess that's it for today. Like, thanks for the time of Victor. And also, if you want to have more good content about crypto and want to know more about the startup story and project about those founders, so please follow Verify and also like our Twitter and leave us comments so that we could know about what you like to know. And also don't forget to follow the Twitter of Sega. Thanks for everyone. Thanks, Victor.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Bye. See you next time.